My grandson Tyler offered to help me set up two-factor authentication on all my accounts. He said his phone number should be the backup, just in case I forgot my password again. Then he set up a password manager on my computer, said it would remember everything for me. That seemed reasonable, until he asked about my other accounts the next week, and the week after that, and every Sunday for 8 months straight. Each time, he added another account to the manager. Each time, his phone got another backup code. Then I noticed login notifications from San Francisco. I had never been to San Francisco. That's when I checked everything. My email, my bank, my investment accounts, my cryptocurrency wallets. Every single one showed logins I didn't recognize. Tyler had been mapping my entire digital life, systematically, patiently, for 8 months. When I opened my Bitcoin wallet, the balance was zero, $470,000. Gone. He had my social security number, every password, complete access to my identity, and when I checked the activity log, I saw it. He was logged in right now, transferring $93,000 from my brokerage account. But here's what Tyler didn't know. I helped design the encryption protocols he thought he was exploiting. And the graduate student I mentored 30 years ago? She runs the FBI's cryptocurrency crimes division now. I watched the transfer happening in real time. $93,000 moving from my brokerage account to a wallet I'd never created. My hand went to the keyboard. One click and I could cancel it, freeze everything, lock him out permanently. I stopped. 40 years of building digital security systems. 40 years of understanding how data moves, how trails form, how evidence accumulates in ways most people never see. And my own grandson, the boy I taught to ride a bicycle, the teenager I helped with calculus homework, had spent 8 months treating me like a target. I didn't cancel the transfer. I picked up my phone and called Maylin Torres on the encrypted line I'd kept since the 90s. She answered on the second ring. I told her what I was watching, told her I could stop it right now if she wanted me to. Her voice was calm. Professional! The same voice I remembered from her graduate defense 28 years ago, except now it carried federal authority. Don't stop it, she said. Let it go through, she explained. They'd been tracking a pattern of elder cryptocurrency theft for 14 months. Same methods, same laundering routes, but they couldn't identify the source. The receiving wallet was the key. Once the money moved, they could trace the full network. The transfer was bait, and my grandson had just swallowed it. I sat in my study and watched $93,000 leave my account. It took 11 seconds. The confirmation appeared on screen like any routine transaction. Clean, silent, invisible to anyone who wasn't looking. But I was looking, and so was the FBI. I closed the laptop and stared at Margaret's photograph on my desk. 3 years since she died. 3 years of people looking at me with that particular sympathy reserved for widowers who seem lost. 3 years of Tyler asking about my accounts, my passwords, my digital life, and me letting him believe I needed the help. I hadn't needed the help. I'd simply stopped correcting people's assumptions. But now, I needed to know everything. How much he'd taken, how long he'd been planning, who else he'd done this to. And then I needed to make sure he never did this again. What I found when I pulled the blockchain records made everything else look like a warm-up. I went to the basement, past the boxes of Margaret's books I still couldn't bring myself to donate, past the filing cabinets Tyler had helped me organize last spring. Helpful grandson, making sure everything was labeled and accessible. I'm sure he photographed every document while he was down here, but he missed the workbench. Behind the pegboard with my old tools, there's a panel that looks like part of the wall. I built it in 1987 when I was consulting for a telecom company that required secure home storage. The laptop inside hadn't been touched in 8 months. Tyler never knew it existed. I powered it on and started pulling the blockchain data. Tyler had asked once, early on, where my Bitcoin came from. I told him Margaret's financial advisor had recommended it back in 2017, a small investment that grew unexpectedly. He nodded like that made perfect sense. Confused old man gets lucky with crypto that fit the story he wanted to believe. The truth was different. I bought my first Bitcoin in 2010 when it cost less than $1. I understood exactly what it was because I'd spent my career building the systems it was based on. Distributed networks, encryption protocols, trustless verification. Margaret thought I was either a genius or a fool. I told her it was probably both. The blockchain doesn't lie. Every transaction is permanent, every movement recorded forever. I traced Tyler's path through my accounts. He hadn't just stolen, he'd laundered. converted my Bitcoin to Monero to hide the trail, then back to Bitcoin through a series of wallets, finally landing in an account registered to a shell company in Delaware. Seaside Digital Holdings, LLC. The name meant nothing. The structure meant everything. This wasn't amateur theft. This was professional-grade money laundering, and the patterns were too clean, the timing too precise, the routing too sophisticated for a first attempt. Tyler had done this before. My grandson hadn't stumbled into elder fraud. He built a system for it. I documented everything. Screenshots, transaction hashes, wallet addresses, timestamps down to the second. The kind of evidence chain I'd learned to build 40 years ago when digital forensics was still called computer investigation. Then I went upstairs to Margaret's jewelry box. It sits on her dresser where she left it. I haven't moved anything in that room. Her reading glasses are still on the nightstand. Her cardigan still hangs on the closet door. Some people think that's sad. Maybe it is, but it also meant Tyler never looked there. Underneath her pearls and the earrings I gave her for our 40th anniversary, there's a small metal device about the size of a USB drive, a hardware wallet, cold storage, completely offline, unhackable unless you're holding it in your hand. I checked the balance. $1.2 million in Bitcoin, untouched. Tyler had found 470,000 because that's what I kept in the hot wallets, the online accounts connected to exchanges, spending money, relatively speaking. The real holdings were here, in Margaret's jewelry box, protected by grief and sentiment. He never thought to look past the obvious. I put the hardware wallet back beneath her pearls and closed the lid. That night, I sent everything to Malin, encrypted files through a secure channel we'd established years ago for exactly this kind of situation. The blockchain analysis, the shell company registration, the transaction patterns that proved Tyler wasn't working alone, or at least wasn't learning alone. Her response came 3 hours later. 2 words, "We're ready," Malin called the next morning. Secure line. She didn't waste time on pleasantries. The shell company, Seaside Digital Holdings, connected to 6 other victims, all elderly, all with cryptocurrency holdings, all with helpful family members who'd offered to manage their digital security. The FBI had been tracking the pattern for 14 months, but couldn't identify the source. The wallets were clean. The routing was professional. Whoever built this system knew exactly how to stay invisible. Until now. The transfer I'd let through, my $93,000, had landed in a wallet they could trace. For the first time, they had a thread connecting the shell company to a real person. My grandson. My evidence. My case. Malin asked if I was willing to help them finish it. I said I was. The FBI had been looking for whoever was behind this scheme for 14 months, and my grandson had just handed them everything they needed. This is Elder Vengeance, where the underestimated always have the last word. Subscribe right now, because when I walked into Tyler's office 3 weeks later with federal agents, the look on his face told me everything. Here's how we got there. Malin's instructions were simple. Act normal. Don't change anything. Let Tyler believe his system was still working. So when he called that Sunday his regular check-in call, the one I now understood was really a status update on his theft, I answered like I always did. Tired, a little confused, grateful for his attention. "Grandpa," he said, "I wanted to stop by today. Check on your accounts. Make sure everything's running smoothly." "That would be wonderful," I told him. "I've been getting some notifications I don't understand. Maybe you could take a look." His voice brightened. "Of course, I'll be there around 2. I hung up and looked at the laptop on my kitchen table, the one Tyler knew about, the one connected to the password manager he controlled. Malin's team had installed monitoring software that morning, keystroke logging, screen capture, network tracking, everything invisible, everything recording. Tyler arrived at 2:15. He brought coffee from the place Margaret used to like. A nice touch, the kind of detail that made him seem thoughtful instead of calculated. He sat across from me in the living room, set his coffee on the table Margaret picked out 30 years ago, and opened my laptop like he owned it. "Let's see what's going on," he said. "You mentioned notifications?" I nodded. Something about login attempts. I couldn't make sense of it. He smiled. "That's just the security system working. Nothing to worry about." He sat across from me, drinking my coffee, and logged into every account I owned, while the FBI recorded everything. I watched him work. The password manager opened with a click, his master password, not mine. He navigated through my email, my bank accounts, my investment portfolio with the ease of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. Because he had. every Sunday for 8 months. Everything looks fine, Grandpa. He turned the screen toward me. See? Your brokerage account is right where it should be. I squinted at the numbers like I couldn't quite read them. The balance showed $61,000. It had been over $150,000 6 months ago. He'd been draining it slowly, carefully, small enough amounts that a confused old man wouldn't notice. That looks right, I said. Thank you for checking. Tyler closed the laptop and finished his coffee. He asked about my health, asked if I was eating enough, asked if I needed anything from the store. The performance was flawless. Loving grandson, devoted caretaker, the kind of young man people point to and say, that's what family should look like. At the door, he hugged me, told me to call if I needed anything at all. I said I would. I closed the door behind him and stood in the hallway for a long moment. The house was quiet. Margaret's photograph watched from the living room. I wondered what she would think of this. Her grandson, her daughter's son, the boy she'd baked cookies for, helped with homework, believed would carry the family forward. I picked up my phone and sent Mei Lin a single message. He's gone. You have everything you need. Her reply came in seconds. We move in 3 weeks. The morning of the arrest, I ate breakfast like any other day. Toast, coffee. The newspaper I still get delivered because Margaret liked holding real pages. Tyler had no idea that in 3 hours, his entire life would collapse. Mei Lin picked me up at 9, black SUV, government plates. She looked exactly like I remembered from her graduate defense, sharp, focused, utterly in control, except now she wore a federal badge and carried a sidearm. You don't have to be there, she said. We can handle this without you. I know, I told her. I want to be there. She nodded. She understood. Vanguard Digital Assets occupied the 14th floor of a glass tower downtown, the kind of building that announces success before you walk through the door. Tyler had worked there for 4 years, senior analyst, rising star. The colleagues who passed us in the lobby had no idea what was about to happen. We took the elevator up. Mei Lin and 2 agents flanked me. The receptionist looked up with a professional smile that flickered when she saw the badges. We're here for Tyler Mackey, Mei Lin said. Don't announce us. The office floor was open plan, glass walls, standing desks, monitors everywhere showing cryptocurrency prices and trading volumes. Tyler sat near the window, headphones on, focused on his screen. He didn't see us until we were 10 feet away. He pulled off his headphones, saw me first. His face lit up with that smile I'd known since he was a baby, the smile that used to mean something real. Grandpa, what are you doing here? Then he saw the badges. The smile died. What's going on? Is everything okay? I stepped forward. The office had gone quiet. Heads turning, conversations stopping, everyone watching. You tell me, Tyler. San Francisco, November 14th, 3:47 in the morning. His face changed. The color draining out. The login notification he thought I'd never understand. Grandpa, I don't know what you're talking about. Mei Lin set a folder on his desk. Transaction records, blockchain analysis, shell company registrations, 8 months of theft documented down to the second. Tyler Mackey, she said, you're under arrest for wire fraud, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy to commit theft across state lines. You have the right to remain silent. Tyler stood up fast. His chair rolled backward and hit the glass wall behind him. This is a mistake. He's confused. He looked around at his coworkers, voice rising. He doesn't understand technology. He's been struggling since my grandmother died. He doesn't know what he's looking at. I let him finish. Let him spin the story he'd been telling himself for 8 months. The story that made this okay. The story that made me a victim who deserved it. Then I spoke. I helped design the encryption protocols you used to hide those transfers, Tyler. I was building secure networks before your mother was born. I understood exactly what you were doing from the 3rd week. I just needed to know how far you'd go. His mouth opened, closed. Nothing came out. Mei Lin continued reading his rights while the agents moved behind him with handcuffs. Through the glass walls, I could see the entire floor watching. The rising star, the helpful grandson, the senior analyst who'd just been exposed. Tyler found his voice again as the cuffs clicked shut. Grandpa, please! I was going to pay it back. I just needed time. I had some investments that went wrong, and I needed... I held up my hand. He stopped. $470,000, I said. 6 other victims. 14 months of planning. You didn't need time, Tyler. You needed to believe I was too old to notice. I stepped closer. Close enough that only he could hear. That was your mistake. The agents walked him toward the elevator. His coworkers parted like water. Nobody spoke. Nobody met his eyes. The man they'd worked beside for 4 years was someone else now, someone they didn't know. Mei Lin touched my arm. "You okay?" I watched the elevator doors close on my grandson's face. The last thing I saw was his expression. Not anger, not fear, but something worse. Confusion. He genuinely couldn't understand how this had happened, how the confused old man had been 3 steps ahead the entire time. "I'm okay," I said. I wasn't sure that was true, but it was close enough. Within 2 weeks, Tyler's entire world unraveled. Vanguard Digital Assets fired him before the end of the day. Cryptocurrency fraud is bad for business when your business is cryptocurrency. His access was revoked, his desk cleared, his name scrubbed from the company website by the time the evening news ran the story. Karen called me that night. My daughter, Tyler's mother. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Dad, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. He told me he was helping you. He said you were struggling with the accounts, and he was just—" "I know," I told her. "You didn't know. Neither did I, until I did." She asked if I could ever forgive her. I told her there was nothing to forgive. She hadn't done this. Her son had. And the distance between those two facts was something she'd have to find her own way across. The arrest made the news. Local at first, then national, when the FBI released details about the broader scheme. 6 other victims across 4 states, all elderly, all with cryptocurrency holdings they didn't fully understand, or that their families assumed they didn't understand. Total theft, over $2 million. The other victims started calling. A 78-year-old widow in Arizona whose nephew had helped with her digital security. An 81-year-old retired professor in Oregon whose financial advisor had been feeding information to the network. A 69-year-old grandfather in Texas whose own son had set up the same password manager scheme Tyler used on me. Same pattern, same tactics, same assumption. Old people don't understand technology. Tyler's fiancée ended the engagement 3 days after the arrest. She'd had suspicions about his income. The apartment was too nice, the vacations too frequent, the explanations too vague, but she hadn't wanted to ask. Now she didn't have to. The federal prosecutor laid out the charges at Tyler's arraignment. Wire fraud, 6 counts of elder financial abuse, conspiracy to commit theft, money laundering. The judge denied bail flight risk with cryptocurrency access and no ties strong enough to guarantee he'd stay. 8 to 12 years federal prison. That was the range his public defender quoted when they finally got around to discussing reality. I didn't attend the arraignment. I'd said what I needed to say at his office. The rest was between Tyler and the consequences he'd built for himself. The neighbors found out. Mrs. Chen from across the street, the Patels 2 doors down, the Morgans who'd watched Tyler grow up, who'd told me what a wonderful grandson I had, who'd assumed my quiet withdrawal after Margaret's death meant I was losing my grip. They looked at me differently now. The confused old man they'd pitied turned out to be sharper than any of them knew. I wasn't sure that was better. Pity is comfortable. Respect requires something more. I hadn't pretended to be confused. I just stopped explaining myself. After Margaret, I didn't have the energy to prove I was still capable. People assumed. Tyler assumed hardest of all. He saw what he wanted to see. A target, not a person. A resource, not a grandfather. And assumptions, I was learning, are the most expensive mistakes you can make. I visited Tyler once. Federal holding facility. Concrete walls, fluorescent lights, the kind of place that strips away everything you thought you were. He looked smaller than I remembered. The confidence gone. The charm dissolved. Just a 26-year-old man in an orange jumpsuit, sitting across from the grandfather he'd tried to destroy. I didn't come to gloat. I came to understand. "Why?" I asked him. That was all. Just the one word. He was quiet for a long time. The performance was finally over. No more helpful grandson. No more concerned caretaker. Just Tyler, with nowhere left to hide. "You were free money," he said. His voice was flat. "Honest for the first time in years. You never seemed interested in any of it. The technology, the accounts. After Grandma died, you just disappeared. I thought you wouldn't notice. I thought you wouldn't fight back. I thought you wouldn't matter. Wouldn't matter. I let that sit between us. My own grandson. The boy Margaret adored. The child I'd watched grow into what I thought was a good man. And to him, I was just a resource to be extracted. An obstacle too feeble to resist." I leaned forward. "That's the thing about assumptions, Tyler. They cost more than you can afford." I stood up to leave. He called after me. "Grandpa, will you ever—" I didn't turn around. Some questions don't deserve answers. Some doors, once closed, stay closed. I drove home through streets Margaret and I had walked together for 43 years, past the coffee shop where we had our first date, past the park where Karen took her first steps, past the school where Tyler had been a bright kid with a future that didn't include federal prison. The house was quiet when I got back. It's always quiet now. But quiet isn't the same as empty. I went upstairs to Margaret's room, opened her jewelry box. The hardware wallet sat beneath her pearls, right where I'd left it. $1.2 million. Untouched. Safe. She'd told me once that she didn't understand Bitcoin, said it sounded like either genius or madness. I told her it was probably both. She laughed and said that described most of my ideas. I made a decision that night. Called my lawyer the next morning, set up a foundation, the Margaret Mackey Digital Safety Fund, education and resources for elderly victims of digital financial crimes. Her name doing good work she never could have imagined. Technology was supposed to connect generations, make it easier for families to stay close, share information, protect each other. Tyler used it to prey on his own grandfather. But the same systems that let him steal also left a permanent record. Every transaction, every lie, every betrayal written in code that couldn't be erased. The blockchain never forgets, and neither do I. If you're watching this and someone's offered to help with your passwords, your accounts, your digital life, trust your instincts. The people who genuinely want to protect you don't need your backup codes. They don't need to be the recovery contact on every account. They don't need a password manager only they control. Love doesn't require access. Remember that. Have you ever caught someone you trusted accessing things they shouldn't? Has anyone ever underestimated you because of your age? Drop a comment below and let me know your story. This is Elder Vengeance, where the overlooked always get the last word. Subscribe if you believe that underestimating someone's age is the most expensive mistake you can make. Hit that like button if watching Tyler realize his grandfather had outsmarted him felt like justice. And remember, every click leaves a trail. Until next time, the blockchain never forgets.